Good morning. So it is about 6:30 in the morning, and we are going to do a little bit of experiment in this video. We're going to see just how much knitting and crochet I can get done for about 14 hours. And we're doing this because our church is going to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky, and it's a 7-hour drive going and a 7-hour drive coming home. So I've packed a bag full of knitting and crochet projects, whips that I've been working on, and we're going to see how much progress we can get made on them. So for this trip, I am bringing my socks. I'll only have to do the toes on both of them. I'm bringing some mini trees to make, some mini stockings to make for my garland, and those are all whips that I have, and I would like to see progress made on them. Pretty excited. I wanted to take more, but it's kind of limited space, so I had to choose projects that were small and that would not take up a lot of space. And now that I'm talking to you, I may go grab one more thing just in case. Let's go on an adventure. Seeing how I'm taking all mini skiing projects, I thought I would bring my Cozy Memories blanket along to work on it. And it also gives me a nice bag to put my projects in. It'll keep them safe. Hello, this is future me, and I wanted to say that I am including timestamps down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. I cover a lot of topics in this video about the Ark and our trip to Kentucky in general. There was even 3 chaotic events that I share because I thought they were pretty funny, and I understand not everyone cares to see that. And so if you're only here for the yarn, I get it, and I want to make the video easy to access for you. So what I did is down in the timestamps, you're going to see the yarn emoji by some of them. Those are the ones that contain the yarny bits. So if you're just here for the yarn, you can click on those and see what I worked on during the trip. If you're here for the whole experience, and I enjoyed sharing the experience with you through the videos and the photos that I took. I will say towards the end of the video that for whatever reason, my microphone I don't know. It just kind of sounds like a different audio. And so I do apologize for that. I tried to go in and change and work with an equalizer. I got it better, but it's just not the sound of the original part of the first part of the video. So I apologize if that kind of dampens your experience at all with this video. But thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate you being here with me today and going along on this venture with me. Let's continue on. So that is why I could not have gotten the intentional color video out to you in time on the 15th, because we were actually leaving on the 14th, and when that program crashed, everything was just gone. Like, it made me so mad that I just had to walk away, because computer and electronics just literally hate me. Like, today I came out here to record about 2 hours ago, and I opened my MacBook. It had an update last night that it did on its own free will, in a way, I guess. It was an automatic update. And for whatever reason, it didn't complete the update. So the only thing my MacBook can do right now is get on the interwebs. And it worked perfectly yesterday, but I can't even like turn the brightness of the screen up or down or even the volume. But it's just one thing after another, which is kind of why this trip was so important to us, because we had actually talked about going to the Ark last year, and Mamaw passed away, and then we were trying to deal with that, and we were trying to work on school and trying to find a new normal. And then the things with Papa all happened, and he passed away, and then again we were repeating the process of trying to find a new normal. And so we kept pushing off this family vacation. For the past decade or so, pretty much every vacation we took, it was with our in-laws, so we could help take care of them on vacation and they can have a vacation. So our family desperately needed a getaway, and then there was the financial. it was a lot of money to go to the Ark, and when we talked about it, we were just trying to figure out how all that was gonna work. So our oldest had came home one day and he works at the church part-time. He actually does a lot of the field trips that the good timers do. And he had come home and said that the good timers were planning on a trip to the Ark and we should go with them. We were invited. And we talked about it and we felt like this was a great opportunity for our family because it was going to be group rates. It would be more affordable, and the fact that they wanted to take church buses so we would not have to pay that 200 and something dollars for gas. But there were some hiccups along the way, and I'm going to tell you about those as this video progresses. But in that first opening part, you saw where I packed my yarn, and you may have saw where I had gotten these off the needles. And so I want to talk about this. I do have some notes in front of me, so if I'm looking down, it's because I am. It's just the way it is, friends. So these are the Weekend Shorty Socks by Summer Lee, and I knit these out of Packa Yarn Company Packa Pads in the Mixed Berries colorway. So here's the Packa Pads. It's a 20% superfine alpaca, 65% superwash wool, and 15% nylon. And it is color number 608. Yes, Mixed Berries. And there's the little Alpaca Yarn Company. So I had started these and it was already opened up, but it was a full skein of yarn. It was 100 grams, but it was already split into two. And I don't remember where I got this. I think I got this from a friend named Brenda. But I just decided to knit socks with them since I was already round up. And you can see the two little balls there. I need to recake them because they're looking kind of shabby at this point. But usually I use anywhere from 360 to 380 yards of yarn for my normal kind of socks, almost 400 yards because of the size of my feet. They're kind of large. So I decided to make some weekend shorties with these, and I actually wind up using 234 yards, so 65 grams total, which is pretty good fast knit for my ginormous feet. So you can see that's that's just whole the whole foot. It's the size of my head. But I did go ahead and wind in. I wound in the yarn. I weaved in my ends, and there's the foot. It looks like something off of a caveman. But anyways, so these were on the needles for quite some time, but since July of 2025, so almost a whole year. And I think I know why. So, number one, when we first kind of came back from the new year and I made that first video and I was talking about I was working on, they were on magically for two at a time. And while I usually love two at a time, I realized that I do not enjoy knitting socks two at a time. I much prefer, in a way, I prefer to knit them on DPNs. So I can knit them congruently or in tandem. So I'm knitting this one on a set of DPNs and I'm knitting this one on a set of DPMs, and I do like the cuff, then I do the cuff, and then I do the leg, and then I do the leg, and proceeding forth. I find that much more entertaining to me and keeps me a little bit more involved in the knitting of the sock. Where just two at a time, I don't know. Maybe it's just the cord maintenance in general. I don't know. But also, I started these cuff down. I think this is only the second or third pair of socks out of like the 10 that I've knit cuff down. And I'm sorry for all you cuff downers. It is not the way for me. It is not the way at all. I much prefer knitting toe up. And I don't even mind the Kitchener stitch, but I much prefer a toe up sock. I think it's because my feet are so long, so by the time I go all the way to here, that's almost all the knitting for me. Because once I turn that heel or I do a fish lips kiss heel, then it's just the leg, the ribbing, and done. But if you start from this end and then you do the leg and then you do the heel, then you realize you have all the foot to go before you can even get to the toes. And it may make my little squirrel brain look for things elsewhere. which is what happened in these. But they are done. The ends are woven in, and I just need to kind of wash them. They fit perfectly, and I do enjoy the length of them. So I'm probably going to knit another pair of shorties. And I've already pulled that yarn, but it's over there. Let me go grab it so I can show you. So the yarn that I pulled for my next pair of shorties is going to be using my sock bag again. I think this is just going to be my for now on forever sock bag, unless it's like holiday, because it's just fitting. It has socks on it. But I chose, it's very bright. It's Lions Brand's Sockies, and this is the lemon drop color. So this is Lion Brand. It is a 75/25, and there is 438 yards to this. 3.5 ounces are 100 grams. But it has, like, some really nice yellows, and it has, like, these, like, neon-y yellows, which I think's pretty fun. I really need some joy because I just feel so stressed lately. I'm going into the gauntlet of summer of VBS and kids camp and all those things, and I know that there's so much stuff I need to be doing as far as the house and processing and working through this yarn, but that's just the way life is. But I feel like as soon as I get momentum, something happens, like today's computer problems and malfunctions. So I grabbed the yellow literally as I was sitting down with this setup because I was like, you know what? I need a little bit of joy. And that's what it's going to give me. I am going to be using DPNs only on these. I'm only going to take enough, as far as in the bag to keep with it, enough to have one needle or one set going on a 4, then another 4, and then one working yarn to work between these because I realize that I am so terrified I'm going to lose some of my favorite DPNs. These are not technically my favorite DPNs. These are just some Knitter's Pride zing or Knit Pro zing. They don't have the sharpest tip on them. I mean, they're okay, but they're not like Stiletto from Signature Needle Arts. And I did see that Signature Needle Arts was bought up by Shy Goo. I'm really curious to see what is going to happen with that and if they're going to bring back the good old needles that we love with the option to personalize them like Signature Needle Arts used to do. And if you're not familiar with Signature Needle Arts, they used to allow you to pick out your tip. You can pick out your top finial if you wanted a straight needle, and they just really had great sharp needles. I would love to invest in 2 pairs of size 1 and size 0 in those for myself because that is typically the size needles that I work with. And I'm keeping these in this little sock yarn cozy, and it's actually Pokemon. You can see Eevee and um is it like Balthazar or something? I don't know. But this is from Fate Threads. I don't know if you can see. It's it's weird lighting today, and just take my word for it. But I'm thinking I may need to take a size 0 instead for this yarn because this yarn is pretty thin. It is a number 1, but it's definitely not a plump one. It's a more of a typical workhorse number 1 yarn and not something like the image yarn that I used, which is definitely a little bit thicker and more plumpier. You can kind of see the difference right there. So, but they're going to go in the bag and they're going to go into my um, basket that I carry everywhere I go, which has been upgraded, and I'll talk about that in another video. It's now changed. It's got a new bagging system. So I'm pretty excited about that. But before we move on to what's next in this video, I do want to ask you a question. Because when I was talking about those socks and I was thinking about why did it take me a whole year to knit some shorty socks, they're not even full socks. And, I did realize it was because of the needle choice and it was because I was doing cuff down. But I'm interested to know Are you a cuff down person or are you a toe up person? And do you find that if you do another way than what you're used to, that it does slow down your process and does take some of the joy out of it for you? Because I'm curious to know if it's just a me weird thing or if it's something that other people experience. The trip itself definitely took a lot longer than we expected on the way down. We were about an hour and 40 minutes from the hotel and we started hearing this really weird knocking sound coming from under the bus. We pulled over at a gas station and thankfully we did because we realized we had blown the sidewall out of one of the tires. And since there wasn't a spare, we immediately began to call around trying to find a tire shop nearby that can handle not only a church bus but actually had tires in stock. We eventually found one about 15 to 20 minutes back down the interstate the opposite way that we needed to go. So we turned around after we had both of the buses filled up and headed over there. And thankfully, they were able to replace the tire, but they also noticed that another one was dry rotting as well. So we wound up getting 2 tires that day, and I think my husband immediately knew what was happening when he heard that sound, because unfortunately, this has happened to my father-in-law, not once, not twice, but 3 times, all with Michelin tires. They apparently dry rot very easy over time, and it's why we never buy Michelin tires in our family, and we never will because of these issues. But after a little bit of time, an hour and 40 something minutes, we were able to get back on the road and head to our hotel. So when I got done with my sock, I knew I had another little project already on the needle. I had taken the yarn and I'd taken one of these little Christmas trees, and I was about here, I think, when I last worked on it. So I was able to knit on this the rest of the way to the hotel. I love these little things. I took a lot of yarn with me to make some more because I'm really wanting to start putting together some of the garland. And I just need to make a few more and then I can start doing that. But this is the Merry Mini Tree by Traveling Knits. I'm using fingering weight scraps for these, and this one is Kim Dye's yarn in the Murky Pond colorway. I love these little projects because they're very travel friendly and they don't use a lot of yarn. So you can just have little snippets of yarn and they don't take up a lot of space in your bags. And this is something that every time I travel, I will be taking and making some miniature trees just because of how travel friendly they are. And it makes me wonder, what are some of your favorite travel-friendly projects that you like to take? Is there anything specifically that you like to work on when you're traveling? Is it socks? Is it hats? Is it little small projects like that? And do you like things that are more involved, or do you like things that are definitely more relaxing and just kind of meditative? By this point, we had started getting a little bit closer to the hotel, so I kind of stopped knitting and was kind of organizing and getting things ready to get off the bus. You kind of get settled in when you're in a bus for 9 hours, but I really wanted to look out the window because Kentucky really reminded me so much of Alabama. Everything was so green and forested, and it just really was peaceful and calming to look at. And I was just really excited about being away and knowing that how much our family needed this little getaway. I think it made it even more exciting. So the next morning, we got up and went downstairs and had the breakfast. Our hotel did offer a free breakfast with your stay, and it was probably, honestly, like literally one of the best breakfasts I've ever had at a hotel in my entire life. And I've had several. But they had these really nice biscuits, and there was a peppered sausage gravy that was cooked to perfection. There was this thin bacon that was just, like, perfect. And then there was sausage links, and then there was egg white omelets and traditional omelets, and you can get it with cheese or without cheese. There was a waffle maker, there was yogurts, there was fruit, there was cereal. So good. But it was really nice to be able to fuel up before we headed out. Even, as a group, but especially as a family of 4 with 2 teenage boys, because we know going into that park, that food is gonna be a lot higher than what you would typically pay. So that was a blessing on itself to help us save some money. But when we got to the park, I really thought it was kinda neat how they had everything set up. You park, and then you get on a shuttle bus that takes you from the parking lot all the way to the actual park. And then when you get to the park, this is a map of the park. You come into this entrance level here, right there, and then you go in, and this building is where you get your band, and then you have to go outside to this little area. There's another bookstore right here, and you go in through this big gate that has this painted rainbow. And as soon as you walk in, you're able to see the pond and all the topiaries and the ark itself. And standing there, it hits you how massive this thing actually is. You walk up to the Ark, and there is a lot of walking on this trip, so if you go, just make sure you have some really comfortable shoes. And you go in, and I think one of my favorite things about the Ark itself was how immersive everything felt. The lighting inside was a lot darker, a lot warmer, almost like lantern light. Looking up through the levels towards the skylights was honestly just mesmerizing. There was a lot of things to see in the Ark. It's set up into different levels of the ship. So there's 3 levels, and the bottom one was the one where they kept all the animals, and it was really neat to see how that was set up, but there was a lot of reading, and one thing I kept really thinking about while I was standing there was just how important it is to be considerate and respectful to those around you. We were there, we were like one of the first groups in the arc itself, but yet it was already very, very crowded. And Cutie Pie just sneezed. And being tall, our whole family is very tall. We had to remain mindful of those around us who were waiting and trying to read over our shoulder. We couldn't really stand and linger in one section too long. So, something I did was if it was a lot of information that I wanted to read, I would just take a quick photo, make sure it was nice and clear. So that way, when I got back to the hotel room, I could read it then when I had more time. But I wanted to keep the traffic flowing and just be respectful to those around me who also were there because of their faith and who wanted to experience it just as much as I did. And I think if the world in general, Christians, non-Christians, everyone would be more considerate and more respectful to those around them, the world would be such a better place. I think that our world has definitely gotten into this whole it's all about me, but it's not. It's all about all of us. And we just need to be mindful of that. The second floor of the Ark had what it was kinda called the Introduction to Animal Kinds. So it had, like, these mock cages, and it had these animals in there that would have been around the time when the Ark was, and it was kinda predecessors of what we know of the animals. It was interesting to see those. There were some dinosaurs in there, and there was this whole section about, where dinosaurs would be in the Bible, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it was just one of those little nerdy things that I was able to geek out over. One of my favorite sections was the Noah's study. There was an interactive animatronic Noah that you can talk to and ask questions and hear his response. They were programmed already on a computer screen, so you just touched which one, and it was almost like you were asking it to him and he was replying to you. And honestly, I probably would have stood there forever as a kid. There was just something really fascinating to see him talk about it. He had his wife over to his right-hand side, and there was even a little bird that kept moving around on his desk and another in a cage kinda diagonal from him.
All the water together in one place, which is why you see only one landmass on that globe. Oh, I have traveled and explored much of the land.
The third floor was probably my favorite because it had a lot more natural light coming through the skylights, and it showed the living spaces, the gardens, the kitchen, storage areas, and typical day-to-day life parts. Honestly, it reminded me of those little rooms that IKEA had set up, and it was just kind of interesting to see how they had placed everything and how their interpretation of what the Ark might have been like was. There was also a lot of little side things to look at that weren't really overly pronounced in the tour itself or in as you're walking through, but there would be like mannequins and showing them feeding the animals or how they would clean out the cages. And all of that was very interesting, and it would be so easy to miss if you were not paying attention. A lot of them were up high, especially for the bigger animals, where they would walk over a landing and lean over to feed some of the more dangerous animals, and even how they had them set up so that their poo would roll down and make it easy to clean under the cages. It was just a really kind of thinking experience. It made you think about things and how things would have been on the ark. And I found it very interesting. And I'm really glad we went. Really glad we went. While I was on the 3rd floor, though, my favorite definitely had to be the kitchen area because they would have had skylights to allow light to come in, and next to the living quarters, the kitchen area was like this open room, and it had these indoor flower beds, or not flower beds, but garden beds. They can grow things on the ship while the sun came in, and I really loved that. I really loved how it looked in the light. Like, it was just very calming to me. And right next to that is when I caught the glance of the loom. Yes, they even had this really big, gorgeous loom that I just had to take some good footage to show you. So as you go through those live areas of the ark, you're then going around a curve, and there's these two fossils. One is a riverbed that has where fish were just kind of laid down and died and then covered up with different layers of dirt. I thought that was very interesting. I think sometimes we forget how quickly things like that can happen with major tsunamis and all the mud at one time. Even the big palm tree, there was this one piece of fossil that a huge palm, and this thing was just so pretty and mesmerizing. Like, I really wish it was a print that you can buy and have this big piece of artwork in your house. I would so have it somewhere. Like, I just loved everything. I just stood there forever staring at it. There was just something about it that I really felt was calming to me. But when you go past that, you have more little vignettes of informational things. So it talked about how they would have got water on the Ark. There was even these glass cases that had all these different little Ark interpretations for all around the world. I really found those interesting, and I really enjoyed looking at all of those. And there was even this really big scroll on the wall, and you could buy like paper version of it by itself, or you can get one that came in a book. We got the one that came in a book. So this is from Adam to Jesus, 13 feet of creation timeline, and it's not a joke. Like, you open it up and this whole thing folds out, and you have information on that side, but on this side it's 13 feet of a timeline, and I just thought that was so cool. I kinda wish we got the actual just timeline itself because it was a little bit bigger and easier to read, but, like, some of the writing is super small. I have to break out the glasses, but I'm very happy that we bought this, and I'm ready to dig into it a little bit more when I have time. And then once you leave that, you kinda go into the bigger souvenir shop, and I wanted to get a couple of things to remind me of the trip. So I got a t-shirt. This is the Noah's Ship Long No Project Too Big design company. It's so cute. And then I got another one, and then I also got a basket. I wanted to get yarn on this trip, but there was no yarn store anywhere by. I was really hoping to get a locally dyed yarn or even something with that was inspired by the ark itself. But they did have my favorite baskets in the gift shop, and that is the African market baskets. Now, these things were a little overpriced. You can order them a little bit cheaper from the website I have before, but I definitely wanted to get something from this trip. And I'm glad I got this basket because it paid off, and we'll talk about that yarn inside of there in a moment. But this is a shape that I do not have. I have a bunch of the African market baskets. I have several of these bigger ones, like this one. I have 3 or 4 of these bigger ones. And then I have one that's a little bit taller and bigger that I use. It's somewhere over there, no man's land. And then I also got a pin to put on a bag. And then I got us a Christmas tree ornament, the Ark Encounter, and it has established in 2016 where it was built. And then I got a patch. I'm gonna make a leather cover for a journal. I bought some leather to make my own, and I want to put this on there. So that's all I got. Oh wait, I forgot. I did get a little alpaca keychain. Isn't it cute? So there was a little zoo area outside as well. I never seen some of the animals before though. There was this zebra hybrid with a horse, and honestly, I just enjoyed slowly walking around looking at everything. It was a very overcast day and the rains were definitely coming. We did eat at one of the little eating places. There is a buffet that you can eat at, but it was rather packed, so we chose to eat at one of the exterior eating places. There was a hamburger, a pizza place, and a taco place. I went with the hamburger and I had a gluten-free bun, which took forever. Don't ever go there and ask for a gluten-free bun. Like, it literally took 15 minutes. I don't know why. I don't know if they had to go across the park to find a gluten-free bun. If I was the first person to ever ask for one, just don't do it. Save yourself the time. But it was a really, really great experience. One thing I quickly realized on this trip was I should have brought a better mixture of projects. I had taken the yarn to make the mini trees. I had taken yarn to make mini stockings because it was the same yarn to make the mini trees. And I'd even taken my socks to work on that were also fingering weight yarn. And then I even came back and grabbed that Cozy Memories blanket because I thought I would work on it, but I never even touched it. So that was like kind of a waste of item to take. But I did realize that I wanted to take some crochet. I wish I brought something to crochet. And I began thinking about that my upcoming donation drive would be just a few weeks away. And I really wish I brought stuff to make some crocheted hats. So our hotel was located right next to a Walmart. So when we came back in from the Ark, we dropped off the Good Timers, and me and the husband and one of the Good Timers, Fran, decided to go to Walmart. While we were there, I thought I would go into the craft department to see if it varied from our local Walmart, and it didn't. Actually, it was almost identical to the one that I go to all the time. But while I was there, I did notice this rainbow yarn. Now, do not laugh at this because this yarn, I don't know what happened, but something happened and it just kind of it fell apart. But this is the Super Saver Red Heart Bitty Stripes. It is a number 4 weight yarn and it is 515 yards, 10 ounces. And so I bought this because I want to make baby hats with every single bit of this, and I needed to do some crocheting. So this is the yarn. I was pulling from the center skein and like the whole center skein came out. So now I have 2 skeins basically, and they're both still through the wrapper. So I'm having to be very careful. I need to rewind this probably today or tomorrow because it's just becoming a hot mess. But look how pretty that is. The symbolism of the rainbow representing hope and peace. It felt really meaningful to make baby hats from this kind of yarn for the Save a Life donation drive. And so that's what I did. I picked up a prim hook. They only had a G and a H, so I got a H to work on with the hats at the hotel and the ride home. I can say that I've tried it now. It's probably not my favorite hook, but it's definitely not bad. And I understand that many of you are diehard prim hook lovers. I do love how long it is, and I love the grippiness of the handle, but I just thought the yarn shaft itself was just too grippy for my liking. I'm definitely a crochet armoire and a um, Knit Pro Waves 2.0 hook lover. I love these hooks more than anything. And I do like the pink Japanese version of the tulip hooks. I do also enjoy some of my Furls Odysseys, probably more than I enjoy the Streamline. because I find them a little bit grippy as well. But that's just me. But I do enjoy the grippiness for certain yarns, just not for yarns like this that are already kind of grippy. So immediately when we got back to the hotel, I started knitting or crocheting up some baby hats. And that's what I plan on doing with that entire skein of yarn. I hated buying yarn, but I really wanted to work on some baby hats. And my goal is to finish all of this, all 513 yards before my Worldwide Knit and Crochet public event, which is the second Saturday in June. Speaking of which, I've already received a box of hats from one of you. I haven't even looked at it. I got the box literally the day we were walking out to go to the bus and or go to the church to get on the buses. So I just brought it straight in here and I haven't touched it since. But I'm going to show those hats and I'm going to tag you in the next video where I kind of just do a wrap up of the month. That may come out next week, and it may come out in 2 weeks. It just kind of depends how my next week goes because there's a lot happening. So just know I am super appreciative of you. I think there was 2 or 3 people sending me hats, so I'm really not sure who it is yet who sent the ones or who the ones I got, but just know I got them and I am super thankful and grateful to you. But I am making newborn hats and I'm making 0 to 3 month old hats with this yarn. So far I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 hats, and I just think they're all so pretty. Like, look at those colors. I love how the yarn looks almost hand dyed. There's some variation in the color. It's just not a solid color. It's more of a semi-tonal. I just really love this yarn. And I'm hoping it even softens up even more when I wash it. I plan on soaking it in conditioner and then using a baby wash to really wash it. But I read that if you do like a really good deep conditioner and let it sit in the conditioner for about 24 hours, it really breaks down the chemical from it going through the processing of being made. So I hope that's true. And I've already started another hat. I kind of would like to make something out of this yarn, like a around the house cardi kind of thing, just because how colorful and fun it is, and the way the texture of the yarn is, where it just kind of looks hand dyed. I don't know. I've really got to do something with this because this is a hot mess. But this is where this basket really, really came into play because I was able to keep it in this basket and work on it for the rest of our trip and all the way home. So that evening, right before we actually went out to dinner, we were all sitting inside and I was working on the hats. I went up to the room to get some medicine for a headache, and the smoke alarm started going off. It's- So naturally, we had to evacuate the entire building. It took about an hour for them to clear the building so we can go back and get our wallets and such to go out to dinner. That night, we made it to Kelly's Homestead Kitchen, and honestly, by this point, we were all exhausted. It was so busy in there, but our server was so nice and kind, and she was just on it with everything. She was a really great server with a really great personality. And the food was really, really good. It was also pretty fast considering how packed it was. There was another party of 19 in there eating as well. And then another like actual charter bus showed up, and it turns out they were all from Birmingham, Alabama, about 30 to 45 minutes from here. So I thought that was kind of cool. We kind of talked to them as they were waiting on their table. It was really good food. And then by the time we got back to the hotel, we were out and ready for bed because we had to get up the next morning to head back home. The ride home was honestly pretty quiet. A lot of the people just slept, and I sat and crocheted on baby hats. We were about an hour from Chattanooga when suddenly we got rerouted onto a teeny tiny 1-lane road to the middle of nowhere. There was no warning, and we had no idea how long it was actually going to take. And we hadn't stopped for gas like we probably should have beforehand, but we just didn't know that the detour was coming. At one point, we were literally sitting with all the doors and windows open trying to save fuel. But the detour itself gave us an extra 2 hours on this trip home as well. But the scenery that we saw was beautiful. We actually got to see a bald eagle in their nest. We got to see this really gorgeous church out in the middle of nowhere, and just endless amounts of trees and hills and green. I think, though, by the time we got back on the interstate, we were all just ready to be home. Overall, this trip was pretty exhausting, very chaotic at times, but a whole lot of fun. There was a lot of things that I'm very grateful I got to experience with my family and with the people from church and that I got to see. I'm grateful that I got to get some knitting and crochet done, and I think that's why it's pretty important to kind of plan out your your crafting for trips because you need to have a backup plan. I showed you the projects that I took, and I need to show you the notions that I took. So whenever I travel, I just pretty much carry one little notions pouch, and this is the one I actually carry. This thing has a pair of scissors in here. There are some crochet stitch markers. There's some waste yarn. There's a pin. There's even crochet hooks, but they're only a G and a F. And then there's a darning needle. There's even a cable needle, um, lens cleaner, tightening tools for my knitting needles. And this little tin has smaller knitting stitch markers. But I like to have, oh, and it always has this little ruler in here, which I've been using to measure the size of my hat. But I think it's important to kind of plan out for things like that. Next time, I will know to definitely take a good combination of knitting and crochet projects because every project tends to carry a memory with it, and I want that to be spread out over all the things that I love doing. And I think it's pretty awesome that we can associate those memories with our trip. So whenever I look at the little tree, this green tree, gonna remind me of the Ark. And I thought it was kind of fitting that it brought it because it does kind of match the ornament and the patch that I bought from the Ark. It has similar colors in it. And the same way with those baby hats, it has that same color theme, the rainbow, the joy, the hope that carries it through. And I think that's my favorite thing about handmade items, the fact that we can put memories and emotion and feeling within them to pass on to someone else. Thank you so much for coming on this little adventure with me. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of tour of the Ark and just hearing all the craziness that's happened, and I will see you in the next one.